So the first couple of books I'll show you, sketchbook wise, I took and this is fairly recent, like 2016, I took a sabbatical. And it just like, again, the reason I'm bringing it up is it underscores this track that we're talking about, which is that drawing is everything, and that your ability to draw is either going to make you or break you, because it's like asking people to sing, but they don't know how to talk, you know? I took a sabbatical, first one ever, and I've been teaching for years and years. Took a sabbatical to Morocco, which I'd always wanted to go to since I was a freshman in art school, because of the John Singer Sargent watercolors that he did when he went there in the 1800s. And he was living with the Bedouins and painting all this stuff. And my head, I saw those things that just exploded. I wanted to go see that stuff. And I sat around for years not doing it. But anyway, so I finally went September 5th, 2016. And I kept 2 sketchbooks on the trip. And and again, thanks to Baron's story, it's all about journaling, like writing about my experiences, which puts me in, having to explain what I'm feeling, and that helps. So here I am on the plane drawing the lady that's off to my left. This is when I got to Madrid. I was meeting my buddy, John Foster, at the Madrid airport. He had just broken up with his girlfriend and was like, of many years, and was in a really bad place. And so I was like, man, I'm going on an adventure. You should come with me. And he's, really? Like what? I'm like, Morocco, man. He's a homebody, So for John to do this was actually pretty amazing, because he never leaves the house. So I met John in Madrid, and then we got on the plane and went to Marrakesh, and we landed in Marrakesh. And this is in an alleyway in Marrakesh that it was so tight. It was unbelievable. We're sitting there sketching, and these little scooters are like flying past us, and we're like, we're gonna die here, man. We didn't spend a lot of time on these drawings.
Welcome to New Masters Academy, the best place to get art education online. Master the skills of figure drawing, painting, sculpting, and much more with the guidance of world-renowned artists. Embark on your creative journey today at iname.art.
And this was a guy we were always in the old town. So the souks and, and they were like mazes, but this guy was out playing musical instruments. So I drew him, and that's one of the few places where I've actually torn a page out. I did a drawing of him, gave it to him, and then did my own for myself. You can see it was cut out right here. I'm horrible at these type scenes. John was great at them because he's a freak. All right, so some of these were drawn from life, and some are drawn from the photography that I was doing while I was on the trip. And because it was weird, I took this trip thinking, man, I'm gonna just sit around and draw forever, And then you get there, and it's like this, incredibly rich place. It's like there's just so much stuff going on, and I'm like, man, every time I'm sitting down drawing, I just know like things are happening that I'm not seeing, and I should be seeing them. So it became a real photographic journey for me and I've done a lot of photography, which you'll learn more about in the course of this series, because it's vital for me for shooting my reference. But I've also made this transition to photography as its own art form as well, it didn't used to be. It was a utilitarian thing that I would use to do the work that I was doing. So some of this one is drawn from a photograph I took while we were there. And at night we would like sit around and we'd have dinner and get some, you couldn't get alcohol really it wasn't allowed in the old town. So we were just drinking a ton of coffee and of course the mint tea that was everywhere. But we would sit and work on our sketchbooks at night. But here we are, holy shit, I'm in Morocco, an air-conditioned bus. It was so hot in Marrakesh, and we finally, after a few days there, we went to Essaouira, which was on the coast on the Atlantic. And so we got on the bus and couldn't believe it. It was air-conditioned. We were like, oh my God. So here this is drawn from life. So these were done with, I think I might have one on me if I don't make a whole bunch of noise digging it out. Well, yep. High-tech sea, high-tech pens. I love these. It's a gel pen. And colored pencil and Neocolor crayons, my favorites. That's how, and a pencil, black wing pencil. This one has watercolor on. I did the drawing with this or my. I have a Pilot fountain pen that you'll see at some point, and that feels what that's a fountain pen. So then I would hit it with water and watercolor and build those up. But this was in an old granary that they had turned into like all these shops and things. It's pretty cool. So fountain pen with watercolor. This is the crayons, these puppies. And I carry a sharpener that allows me to sharpen these up to a point, and you can really get, and you know, you think crayon, and we think Crayola. No, these are a whole other breed of crayon. They're incredibly sensitive. They can do anything you want them to do with, I mean, Crayola is like drawing with a candle, you know, like whack. They just don't work, right? But this is like super sensitive, incredible. So again, I'm using different colored inks for either different time periods or different thoughts and stuff. And it's all, again, they're colored versions of this pen. That's a fountain pen with a brush pen and then spit. Spit on my thumb and push it around. So again, we're on the coast, the Atlantic coast. And they filmed some of the Game of Thrones around here. Pencil of the Casbah. And I'm going into this one with a razor blade and scraping out areas. So this observational drawing here, I mean, we went to Imlil into the Atlas Mountains, and it's just these Adobe style things built, stacked on top of each other up the sides of the mountains and stuff. Pretty amazing. This is a brush pen that's running out of ink, which gives me a nice dry brush effect. We were on this 5-mile hike that we didn't know we signed up for, and we're like dying. And anyway, we got to the certain point. I said, I'm done. See you guys later. I'm just going to sit here. When you come back, you can get me on the way back. And I just sat down, said, I'm going to draw this tree while you guys keep getting, you know, hurting yourselves. I'm just going to stay here because it was just me and John and this guide. So I sat down and spent all this time really working this tree up, and crayons for the mountains. But it's this, you know, and here we are looking, we're in Imlil looking down on the rooftops. And so again, see, this stuff becomes, you have to build this vocabulary in your own head, visual vocabulary, and this idea that you're changing your perspective, right? The way that you see. And basically, you know, all the drawing that you do and that we'll be doing in here is all about training you how to see in a different way, right? Because everybody, we all see the world the same way. We all see the same stuff. But how, you know, but I have to, you know, your art teachers and all, we're trying to train you to see a different way than what normal people see. And that's through shape. Not about, it's like forget the names of things. Then you can draw it for what it really is rather than, oh, that's a chair. I know what a chair looks like. And then you don't look at it anymore, right? But it's like, no, but that chair is very different than that chair. This person, you know, is very different than that person. Their nose is not the same nose that's on this person. So it's all, you have to learn how to really look. It's like learning how to see all over again. So this was our guide on that 5-mile trek up through hell, right? Elevated hell. Eid, these guys came running out of the forest, and they were wearing these skins with horns and stuff, and they were freshly skinned animals, and they reeked. Oh my God, the smell was so horrible. So sitting in an alleyway in Fez, It wasn't as crowded as Marrakesh, which was nice. This is in a dye factory, a tanning place, looking down on the tannery. That was pretty wild. And talk about reeking again. They give you this mint that you put under your nose because it's so horrible. Because they use pigeon crap to do this. The Blue City, which this wasn't blue where I was yet, but all the buildings are painted this incredible ultramarine. It's just nuts. Pencil with an eraser to play with design and highlights. So again, like even just something as simple as an eraser, it's not about erasing. It's not always about correcting. It's another drawing tool. Pen and wash. Fountain pen, brush pen. Walkers. This girl was traveling alone. By this time, my buddy John had left. It was just me, and I was there for another, man, 7 weeks. But so she was Japanese, 18-year-old, and couldn't speak English really, a little bit. And but she was traveling alone through Morocco, and then asked, we were talking, and she saw my sketchbook. It's like, oh, draw me, draw me. So I drew her, and then she signed it and stuff. People would sit for me, and I had them sign it. So I can't read it, But I ended up living with this guy and his family. He was a Berber in Fez. That was an amazing deal. It was at he and his wife had a shop that sold jewelry and carpets and whatever. And he was explaining to me all the different tribes that made these things and what, geographically, he had pretty good English, and he said, oh, so, where will you go now? And I said, well, I want to go see the Sahara, which I was an idiot because Marrakesh is a lot closer to the Sahara than Fez is way north. So it was like another 13-hour trip back the other way. And he said, oh, it's beautiful. He's like, let's do it. I'm like, what? He goes, let's do it. I know a driver. I was like, I'm up for it. Yeah, man, in for a penny. So anyway, with this whole thing, and went down, we drove there with this driver and his oldest daughter. And this is his youngest daughter. That's Eid, right? This festival. That's the horned guys. And this is her drawing of me and fish, poissons. So our first stop was at the Ganawa encampment, which is this tribe of black musicians. They're traditional Ganawa music. They're unbelievable drums and guitars and ouds and stuff. So we were sleeping in tents and came out in the morning. The first morning I was there, I saw this and sat down and drew it. These are the guys that night during dinner playing. So I sketched them, and then they signed. They gave me their names and stuff. It was an amazing trip, and drawing the locals. The pencil drawings, and I would go in with. I didn't have yet the Posca white markers, but this was done with called Jelly Roll white pen. Later, Bill Sienkiewicz introduced me to the Poscas, and I'm like, oh my God, this is what I needed in Morocco. In the market, drawing these unfortunates have no idea what's in store for them, right? During this big festival, I did this blind at night, and this whole thing was going on with these horsemen and traditional garb and music, the streets where you couldn't move in the street. It was crazy in Fez. Pencil again. Lots of, I also I had my phone. I was doing a lot of photography with my phone, and I had my Canon. And then I had this printer that was basically the size of my phone, not even, it was about this big. And I could print images from my phone wirelessly and give them out to the people and stuff. So So that's book one. This is the second book I kept in Morocco. These traditional Moroccan musicians that the family that I was living with, that Berber family, they said, "Oh, you should move in with us." I'm like, "Okay." So, so they found out it was my birthday and invited this band to come play so I could draw them. That's where I was. I've never, I've never gotten high from marijuana. Tried it, and I did inhale, but nothing. And this guy in particular was smoking hash and keef and whatever, and I was like, let me try that. Still didn't get high. So anyway, I'm immune. That's in the Blue City. More walkers, but I'm using coffee as my color. Coffee grounds. So again, it's this drawing from life, from things that I can see and interpret. You know, camera is beautiful, a beautiful device for capturing what's really there, right? Like it's so much better at that than we are. But I was taught not to use photos, but to draw from life and to just attack things, right? It was never about measuring. It was never about site size, any of that stuff. It was like, there it is, draw it. And that was it was all about emotion. It was about your line is like it's like a fingerprint. And they talked in that kind of dialogue was, it's emotive. It was feelings. It was handwriting. It was your calligraphy. It was all those kind of things. So it was all about reactive drawing and not, where I'm figuring it all out and it's got to be perfect. It's like, no, man, get it down. Make a statement and move on. And so that's how I was trained. And that has been great for me. Because it's, I don't believe there's the perfect line. One line leads to the next line, and they it's a constant back and forth. They inform each other, and then if you can learn to dive in and give yourself permission to mess up, you're going to learn a lot more than just polishing turds all day. It's like, live with it, because that's when it's wrong, right? Yeah, like that didn't feel right. Right. But if you go and fix everything, you don't get to look back and understand why it didn't feel right. So go for it, leave it, let it sit, move on. Then you're going to learn a lot more. This is when I finally finished the journey, and I was in Barcelona. It was my last few days in overseas for that. And I ended up going instead of going to like the Gaudi Museum and all, I went to the Egyptian Museum and drew mummies. Because they're cooler looking, right? So Barcelona. And then it turned out, talk about weird. I have these certain friends, right? We all do now, on Facebook that I've never met, but we're friends. And so I was getting like, man, are you in Barcelona? And it's like, yes. And it's like, I'm coming in. And we would, I was meeting all these artists that I only knew on Facebook. And we were going out to other studios, and I got invited to go do some life drawing at the Barcelona Atelier and show them how I do figure drawing and stuff like that. It was like, man, it was so open and cool. It was so fun. And I reconnected with this one artist that I had met 20 years before in Venezuela. And he was now living in Barcelona. And he's like, it's me, it's Leonardo. I'm like, what? Unbelievable. And he was having an opening of a show, so I went, and he does children's books and he does all kinds of stuff. And that was the author that he worked with and was doing a reading, and then Leonardo was doing live these watercolors. As the guy would read, he would talk about a scene, and Leonardo would do it, and you're just like, boom, like unbelievable. So again, that was, a lot of empty pages. So a lot of my sketchbooks are full of, you'll see, I also do exercises with students about what I call video drawing from movies, freeze framing movies. And then back in the day when I was doing Enemy Ace, I used to freeze frame movies. It was VHS, DVDs didn't exist yet. And if you freeze framed anything, it would only last 1 minute, and then it would disengage, and you had to like fire it back up, rewind it, try and you would never get the same frame, but so you just made do. So you had to draw fast. And I was also drawing on the subways of New York City. And when I first started, I was like, man, I was wanting to draw detail stuff. Yet you couldn't do that because they would, would start drawing someone and they would get up and within a minute and leave the train. I was like, whoa. So it became this, again, it was this expressive, I need to get the big stuff down. You know what I mean? And then if I want to noodle later, I can do that, but I've got to get what's the point of this that I'm looking at, right? And now there's a big coat. Is it the person's face? Is it a face? Is it a nose? Is it a certain eye? Is it what? Get it down, like focus, get to it. And it was the same with the video drawing because you only had 1 minute. So anyway, I have like vast amounts of movies that I've done screen captures that I've gone through granularly and picked out the best shots, the best gestures and things. And I have my students draw them in different, but I tell them what it is they're doing. Like this is a pencil drawing. This is a pen and ink. This is, you're just doing the background, not the figures, blah, 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 and I kind of coach them through. But we draw from all these different movies very quick. They don't know how much time they have either. I'll leave that open. It's like, you don't know, I'm gonna just flip this thing, so you got to draw fast. It's not about, it's because I'm trying to get people to turn off the analytical mind. Because once you go to that place, you're detailing, you're missing the point, which is the big stuff, right? The big shapes. And like my life drawing class is all about gesture. So I do 5-second gesture drawings. So I have students doing 5-second gesture drawings. There's no way you can do a nice drawing in 5 seconds. So it's totally about turn your brain off and just think about a cookie cutter, right? It's like you get a cookie cutter going. Everybody knows what cookie cutters are. It's a star, right? Whatever, it's a bad star. But you know what I'm saying? You can make a cookie out of it. So when the figure gets up there, same thing. It's like you only have time to do something, like this, right? And then it's like, okay, we're doing that for like a while. And then we move to, okay, now you get 10 seconds, but you draw at a 5-second pace. Now you have twice as much time, but you're still drawing at that 5-second pace. So you can tell me a little bit more. And we start doing this, and it's all about seeing the big picture. So anyway. So you get really good at like gesture and shape, like this. I mean, these are like, I don't know how long this took. It was 10 minutes, whatever, but I'm, and obviously I have good reference up there. I'm looking at a really cool bit of film, but it's got to get it down, Bone tomahawk. This is from a piece of reference by, oh my God, I can't think of his name. Frank Schoonover, who was a student of Howard Pyle. Anyway, that's from one of his photo refs. Let's see here, what do we got? And I don't have one on me, but when I'm drawing with a pencil, I don't draw like I'm writing. I draw like I'm holding a knife. Because when you're doing this, it's just fingers. That's your distance, right? You see how sort of hobbled you are here? Yeah, I can slide my hand around, but really I've got that. But if I do this, it becomes a whole hand, a whole arm, right? So that's how these are done. And you can see, like, I'm not setting things up. I'm not sketching and then coming back and tightening up. It's like, no, go for it. Put it down and live with it. You're going to learn so much more about drawing that way. When you commit to the lines, draw like you mean it. Because then you're drawing with purpose, not just about polish and cleaning up and trying to impress everybody. It's like, just draw, get it down. So then I skip the white paper because I want to draw on toned paper. So I can do this kind of stuff. Here I'm stretching this guy on purpose, right? And this was during a sketchbook class. I did this last semester at Ringling, but this is I had the students do a quick line drawing from an Edward Tooney drawing. His caricatures and his hands, I mean, they're just awesome. And then these are looking at a photo, all of this stuff, playing with distorting. And that comes from something Mark English said. And if you don't know Mark English's work, you need to look him up. I'd rather look at an interesting drawing than a correct drawing. And it's true. I'd rather have something, I don't care if it's off, as long as it's cool looking, right? As long as it works, that's what matters. I mean, a giant ear, right? But that was intentional. It's like, I'm just going to play with this. I'm going to push this, I kind of don't want things to be right anymore. It's like everybody else is having fun doing crazy stuff. And I worked really hard at learning to draw things correctly. And man, it's boring. It just got old. I'm like, yeah, okay, I can do that. But what's the point? The camera's better at it. So I want to have fun, now. Start distorting and playing with things. Yikes. So that's done with this. And then the Posca's on top. That's a brush pen with Posca on top. And again, like all of this stuff, none of this is penciled or any kind of layout. It's just dive in with a pen and just go for it. Or the brush pen. Just draw straight with a pen and love up on it. And to me, what's exciting about this type of stuff is, for me, when I'm drawing with a brush, this is all brush and then the dry brush, it's like a jigsaw puzzle, getting all the pieces in place, straight with a brush. But the thing that we're our big, what you're really struggling with and hopefully attempting to do through all of your drawings is to make this stuff come alive on the page. What writers call the waking dream. It's what we have as artists, is to make this stuff come alive and be real to people. That if you don't want it to be so obvious that you're like, the artist should be invisible. They should look like they just kind of fell on the page, and that it's living and breathing. The minute you become aware of the artist in a big way, it's like you've sort of failed at your purpose, which is to get these people to invest in this story and to like lose their sense of, suspend their disbelief, right? But try and like suck the life out of this so that it comes forward, that you're looking at people and that are living and breathing. These are fun. Oh yeah, on the back with a white thing. So brush pen with some white. Same here, brush pen. With I'm using bleed proof white, which comes in a little jar. You'll see that at some point. Little scenes. Mummies again. More mummies. This is at school. I had one of the models dress up as a pirate, and we did life drawings from him. Gustav Klimt's Main Squeeze. And this is a fun exercise, just playing with light. And this is as dark as you get. This becomes your shadow paper. This is a fairly new sketchbook here. Heavy paper. And this is from a photograph I took from when I first got to Florida to teach. Tibetan monks came to this place and did a mandala. So I took my class and we drew from them. And I took a lot of photos too, which is what I was drawing from here. Angkor Wat, I'm not sure how I'm pronouncing it correctly. Students out drawing. More Morocco stuff. I brought in a splatter brush in here too. Draw your meal, draw your drink. This is in New Orleans, Jackson Square. One of those guys with the big signs, you know, flipping it around. So let me find the, this is a little self-published thing I did on my sketchbooks, but it can show you a little more diversity. These are all from life. This is all life drawing. All of this pastel. This is one of those grease pencils on the rice paper. An acrylic painting of my then girlfriend sleeping, standing in front of a Rodin sculpture. This drawing here is a little brush drawing. This figure is actually about this big. About like that. Real small little brush drawing. Pencil. Game of Thrones. My son when he was little. That's drawn with a putty knife, about a 1.5 inch, 2-inch putty knife with acrylic. It's totally unyielding. You gotta just you gotta make it work, you know. Wet pastel. So again, like you cannot draw enough. And you can't draw too much. Draw, draw, draw.